Resident Evil 9 is a horror game. Grace Maria Ashcroft is an FBI analyst who reads reports for a living. Has never once in her professional career been asked to investigate a career center that had 10-foot tall monster who looked like a grandma ages old. And she was surely sent to this place to make a seasoned war veteran immediately file for early retirement. I decided that the best way to experience all of this was insanity difficulty, which was not actually enough to lose half of my mind, because insanity mode was surely designed to make you lose the actual insanity itself. And while all of that was not enough, I decided that I would attempt the Trifecta challenge for the first time on this channel, which in Resident Evil 9, especially while you're stuck in a building full of people who have already lost their minds, is going to be exactly as brutal as it sounds. No healing items whatsoever, no using Grace's blood collector, and finishing the game by releasing Elpis in under 4 hours. And as if all of that somehow still seemed manageable, we will also be resetting from the last save every single time we die. Before we get into all of that though, Capcom made sure we would never go broke by generously providing a casino inside the game, which I appreciated deeply as a man who has already lost everything in other ways. And also enough food to feed a small center, which means protein was not going to be a problem here. Now before we get into all that actual suffering, let's talk about the rules. Rule 1. Fresh run on insanity difficulty, no new game plus, starting from absolutely nothing with whatever the game decides to give us and nothing more. Rule 2. No new game plus items or weapons, which means anything unlocked from previous playthroughs stay locked and we earn everything from scratch the way Capcom originally intended before they felt generous. Rule 3. No cheating on puzzles or items, which means every solution has to be found in its actual location before it can be used. And with those rules established and my mental health preemptively filled for early retirement, let's get into what was actually waiting for us. We open at FBI Midwest Field Office, where Grace Maria Ashcroft is sitting at her desk doing what FBI analysts do. And her boss, Nathan, who clearly never read the employee handbook on workplace sensitivity, has decided that the best person to investigate the murder at the Wrenwood Hotel, the exact location where Grace's mother was murdered 8 years ago. Getting inside the Wrenwood Hotel, we find kitchen that someone had left in what I can only describe as controlled emergency, who had somewhere more urgent to be and made a collective decision that the meat was no longer their problem. It also appears that Grace has a stalker.
It's time to stop! It's time to stop, okay?
Directing her to room 204 and who communicates exclusively through slamming doors without saying anything. Making our way to the room, we find our stalker has decorated the bed with photographs of Grace, specifically which combined with the reminder that Grace's mother Alyssa was actually murdered by her own stalker simply for sharing information about some files that certain people did not want shared. And that discovery that Alyssa had hidden notes describing Grace as someone with social energy of a person who has already decided they are not enjoying the party. And that tone was confirmed almost immediately by a police officer who had been waiting in the corridor and expressed his feelings about our presence by coughing what appeared to be the entire dental collection out of his mouth before shooting us with his favorite shotgun 5 times before the night had even properly started.
Bro, where are you? Where are you aiming at? The fuck? Oh, finally!
After finding the emergency exit key, we unfortunately received an unsolicited biological update in the form of a zombie bite, which in any other franchise would be the end of the story, but here we examined the wound and decided we were probably fine. We then meet Victor Gideon, a man who does not appear to have an HR department, because if he did, they would also be getting chalked. Then we see the father, Leon Zeno Kennedy, who was wearing his jacket in a way that suggested he had dressed in the dark and had no one in his life willing to tell him, and who was looking for a man named Victor Gideon that had apparently posted his location on Facebook a few minutes prior like a man with absolutely no concerns about being found. And Leon recognized him immediately from the building height alone as he stepped out of the car, which is either exceptional detective work or Victor Gideon is simply that easy to identify in a crowd. Victor at this point decided to express himself by shooting people with what I can only describe as a love potion elixir whose effects kicked in immediately and whose side effects we would all begin regretting within the next several hours.
God damn it!
Elbridge section was mostly about jumping on cars like a kangaroo, and after 5 deaths and resets I finally made it to the end of the road, having learned that kangaroo jumping on cars is a skill that requires more practice than it looks. Waking up as Grace, we find ourselves in a lit room with no immediate context for how we got there. And to get out, we needed a fuse that was locked behind a screwed panel, which meant finding a screwdriver first, and the screwdriver was in the dark section of the building, which I can only describe as the scariest place I have ever been in my entire life. Meeting the girl, who I will not be calling a grandma even though she looks exactly like one whose teeth have gone black and red in a way that suggests her dental plan left sometime around 1987. We made our way to the lit room where she apparently cannot enter due to a severe and personal allergy to light. After getting the fuse successfully and feeling briefly like a person who had things under control, the attempt to run away revealed that the girl's grudge had grown considerably during our time in the lit room, and she expressed this by slamming us into a wall hard enough to gift us what felt like a full set of broken ribs. Pulled into the darkness and briefly reconsidering every decision that led to this moment, we switched to Leon Z. Kennedy, who was apparently waiting for personal invitation from Gideon himself, which Victor did extend in his own way, and which was going to end with a little surprise that Leon had not budgeted for emotionally. After seeing a doctor mindlessly chainsawing the lady and Leon standing there doing nothing about made me need a second opinion about this situation. Well, honestly, I will not take any chances here. After dealing with Gideon's puppets, we find the girl, the one who looks like a grandmother who has made some specific lifestyle choices, and it turns out she was simply in need of some banana vitamins, which Leon does his best to provide by shooting the banana directly at her, which ends the conversation. Leon at this point notices that Grace is having small disfluency, and in act of genuine compassion, hands her the banana to make sure she has enough vitamins for whatever comes next. Meanwhile, on the other side of the room, Leon has started a conversation with Victor, Gideon, and Grace holding her banana, not hearing any of this, already moving toward the exit. To get out of the building, we needed 3 quartz to place in the door, which could be found around the care center, and we needed a big patience to find them all over the place. Taking the banana, we head to the room to find Emily, a girl who is blind and did not have energy or the ability to have a meaningful conversation with us. And we grab the West Wing key and make our way to the kitchen, where we meet the chef, who had one thing to say, and that one thing was... And I want to be clear that this man was not chopping food. Getting out of the kitchen and back into the corridors, crouching 99% of the time, which had already stopped being a tactical choice and starting being a personality trait. Deciding not to bother with the bathroom where the maid was doing whatever the maid was doing, we made our way to the dining room. Not disturbing employees that eating other employees due to starvation that this company could not offer. Where I was being followed by a zombie and made the executive decision to throw my empty bottle as a distraction, which in hindsight was an emergency pants situation. The zombie blocking the road forward presented what I can describe as an imminent banana bullet situation, and I made the choice knowing full well I would be thinking about that decision for the rest of the building. Getting through the bar lounge, we find a singer who had apparently been injected with what I can only describe as vocal steroids, triggering the lady who seemed like she had been working minimum wage for too long, and I somehow managed to get into the chairman's office, where we played a very focused game of a cat and mouse. Drew the answers for the puzzle and grabbed the moon quartz from its place like 2 professionals who had silently agreed on terms of the interaction. After inserting the quartz, we make our way to the parlor, and we should... wait a second.
God, bro. Oh, hell no, man. What the fuck, man?
Wait, I wasted so much time here, and look at the time. Wait, what was I gonna do? After getting the East Wing keycard and still not saving the game because I had made a personal decision to not respect my own insanity, I noticed that my health bar was already on caution, which was fine because we cannot take damage anyway. Getting through the East Wing, we encounter a man making sounds that I can only describe as farting from his mouth, which was not something I was prepared for. And I wasted too much time trying to understand that I was hearing.
I think there's. Oh my goodness! Ah!
Where I stood for a moment, looked around, and realized I did not need anything in here. Why did I even come here? Meeting the surgical brainwashed group, I made my way to the waiting room where a lady was cleaning blood off the floor for what I can only assume was minimum wage, and a gentleman in the corner was attempting to have a very personal relationship with his own head. After collecting a gun from the counter next to a man who was holding a pee bag with the specific energy of someone who had accepted his circumstances completely, the only way forward was upstairs, and the only problem was that I had no bottles left and no banana ammo, which meant removing the zombies blocking the roads was theoretically impossible by any conventional means.
Oh! What the fuck?
Resetting one more time and attempting to shoot my way through, I quickly confirmed that this was also not going to work. So I did what I would always eventually do in the situation, which was start the entire game from the beginning. Back through the care center, at this time I kept my bottles and arrived at the East Wing with the specific focused energy of someone who had already done all of this once and was not interested in doing it a third time. There was no time for cat and mouse with the zombies this time. The priority was getting upstairs and grabbing the level 1 keycard as fast as possible to unlock the new areas of the care center. The zombies in this building seemed to understand the assignment because they were absolutely starving, presumably because Victor Gideon had not fed them in several decades. I tried to clear them with the banana but missed one, which cost me my entire remaining ammo dealing with the other guy, every last bullet. After cleaning the way and grabbing the level 1 keycard, we meet the circle bulldozer.
Run! Don't stop looking! Just run already!
A man who looks like he personally ate the entire country and then went back for the dessert menu.
Can I get inside, right? Sorry, I mean, it was funny though.
While I was not having a good time listening to Chunk's starving stomach sounds, I still had to get upstairs and find a corrosive bottle to melt the lock and get the sun quartz, and everything was going reasonably until I made the executive decision to spend my only remaining banana ammunition on 2 zombies laying on the floor. Which meant I had nothing left for the singer zombie inside the conference room, and triggering her also spawned Chunk directly in front of us, blocking the only exit. And I was in the middle being seriously reconsidered as a dinner option by everyone present.
Ah, damn it!
While trying to avoid becoming Chunk's dessert and with the conference room looking completely unreachable.
Oh my goodness!
No banana ammo, no hemolytics. Since we're doing Trifecta challenge, it was time to go back to the beginning one more time. But before we get into all of that,
what a fucking shame.
before attempting the singer zombie again, I decided the garage was the better option since we had the level 1 keycard and there was no reason not to check what was down there first. And getting through the waiting room, we found some genuinely useful items, including the pantry key, which we could use to open the kitchen and wake up whatever was sleeping on the raw chicken in there, and also a RIP knife. Making our way to the garage, we find someone's beer cooler sitting there, which turned out upon closer inspection to be someone's organ, which we could not open yet since the code was locked inside the lead researcher's safe somewhere back in the building. And that was exactly the moment a man who had clearly obtained his license from Walmart decided that garage dozer was his personal vehicle and that driving it directly at us was the funniest thing that happened to him all day. And I want to be very clear that I do not find it funny, and that my only thought in that moment was getting a clean shot at his head and getting out of the garage with whatever dignity I had left. While running out of ammo consistently because the RE engine RNG had decided that what needed most in a no healing trifecta challenge was green herbs. After spending considerably more time than necessary finding whatever else the building had to offer, we also managed to quietly collect Grace's personal gun from the bar without anyone noticing. With the wrench in hand, we also grabbed the artificial heart for the body in the examination room to get the level 2 keycard.
Should I get that? Maybe not.
Without getting chopped by the chef.
God damn it.
Everything was coming together and the exit was starting to feel like a real possibility rather than a theoretical concept. Only thing left was the corrosive bottle sitting inside the conference room, which was loaded with a lady singing until her lungs burst, and the only exit from that room went directly through Chunk's stomach, which left us with exactly one remaining option. Back to the beginning of the save, this time keeping the banana ammo untouched and using the regular gun to deal with the two heads up the stairs instead. It was time to get a revenge. After our sweet revenge, taking the acid and making our way back to the research room for the next puzzle, we meet Victor Gideon again, who was looking for his next victim to choke, which at this point felt like a full-time job with benefits. After a brief conversation with Gideon, my overgrowing inventory decided that it could not accommodate the notebook, which is the kind of problem that only exists in video games and which I dealt with by opening some space. And finally, collecting both organs for the body in the examination room.
Doctor, what seems to be the problem here, sir?
After getting the extra inventory bag and saving the game, and after seeing Chunk's ass more the times than I would like to formally admit, I turned my attention to figuring out how to clear the examination room and get the second keycard, which was presenting its own specific problem in the form of a doctor with a knife who, upon being killed, would wake back up and bite you in the leg, putting the health bar at immediate risk. Eventually though, killing the doctor directly in front of the main door gave me just enough space to collect the level 2 keycard without disturbing him at all. Of course, this is a Resident Evil game, which means one problem ending is simply the game's way of introducing the next one. And for the third quartz, we needed Emily to read the Braille puzzle, which sounds straightforward until the game decided to release 4 additional idiots into the corridor, specifically to make getting Emily there as difficult as possible.
Oh my goodness! Luckily, Emily is blind, so she doesn't see any of these.
Luckily, there was a banana ammo waiting inside the pantry that we could use to deal with the situation.
Damn it!
Well, I missed one, but shot him dead with my handgun and made my way to Emily. At this point, the clock was showing 1 hour 25 minutes, which was already looking bad for the Speed Demon achievement and was getting worse by the second. And while Emily was solving her Braille puzzle, the situation outside the door required immediate management, which is where the RIP knife finally came into its own. Thankfully, Emily came through and got the quartz, but apparently Umbrella had been watching and decided that this was the exact moment to resurrect our grandma who arrived, assessed the situation and took Emily with her, moved that as extremely rude considering everything we had just been through to get here. While Grace was dealing with the grandma situation on her side of the building, on Leon's side, Victor Gideon had organized a daddy simulation. Victor getting uncomfortably close, touching him in ways that were not professionally appropriate for any work environment, including this one. Unfortunately, the chunk boss fight presented its own specific problem, which was the game on Insanity had decided the shotgun it usually provides no longer our business, and we would need to purchase it ourselves from the shop before the fight could even begin. The fight itself was not impossible, but Chunk had clearly been training because he was crawling around the attic at a speed that a man of his particular dimensions had absolutely no business moving at. After a few tries though, we found a rhythm, and when Chunk finally came crashing down to the floor and presented the execution opportunity, I want to be very clear that I approached it with the full professional dignity of someone who had been chased around the care center attic by this man and had feelings about it. By few shots of our shotgun while he was down did the most damage, and repeating it 5 cycles, we erased the fat guy from the existence. Finding the staircase back into the care center and reflecting for a moment on everything Grace had been through in this building, every zombie, every reset, every banana bullet spent, every time Chunk appeared somewhere he was not supposed to be. Leon has now arrived, and it is time for a different kind of energy entirely. Making our way to the director's office, we find the Blisterheads, who had clearly not been informed that the situation had changed and were still committed to attacking with the full enthusiasm of people who had not yet met Leon. And we eliminated them on time and found inside the office a document referencing something called Elpis, connected to one specific person. Where did she go anyways? Starting from the underground and making our way through the prison cells, we find Emily, who at this point could not see and could not hear, which meant she had effectively lost every sense that would have been useful in this specific location. And to free her, we needed 3 fuses gathered across the underground facility, which would also help open access to the other areas down here. Getting the first 2 fuses and picking up another extra inventory bag for Grace along the way, we also witnessed Grandma and Grandpa disagreement happening in the facility. Oh my god.
He doesn't give up.
Which I did not have time to fully process, but respected nonetheless. Getting to the other side without getting locked in presented the next obstacle in the form of a meat grinder waiting at the bottom of the ladder, which activated from the moment we climbed down. And I want to be very clear that becoming ground beef was not part of Trifecta challenge rules, but was starting to feel like a real possibility. With the grinder running and zombies closing in from every direction, the solution revealed itself naturally, pushing them directly into the ground beef process one by one, and got us the 3rd fuse in a way that I found deeply satisfying. Before getting to Emily, there were some zombies between us and her that needed handling, and the boiler room presented the most elegant solution available, which was luring them onto the water-covered floor and letting the electricity do the work. And watching them step directly into it made me think deeply about the kind of decisions people make in their final moments, and then I decided I did not want to think about it anymore and moved on.
Go back to your hole.
Grabbing Emily and attempting to get out of the facility, Grandma arrived with a very specific agenda and expressed it by attacking us one final time before the elevator fell down on her hand and removed it from the rest of her arm, which we collected and placed carefully in the box as a souvenir for the museum we are apparently building of things. Making it to the courtyard helipad, we meet Harry Reid, a helicopter pilot left stranded outside with his key confiscated by his own employer, specifically so he couldn't leave, which says everything you need to know about the workplace culture here. Leaving Emily Emily with Harry, a man we met approximately 4 minutes ago, we head into the house next to the helipad to find the helicopter key, which Harry's employers had locked away in a VIP suite behind the wine bottle puzzle. And I want to acknowledge that whoever designed this shit key storage system made a series of choices that I respect even though I do not understand them. Getting the key required going through the bunker underneath the house first, which I want to describe carefully. It was a blood and human seeds harvesting facility, and those two substances were not being stored separately, and I'm going to move on from this information immediately and never return to it. While down there, we caught the end of Victor Gideon's private phone call where it was revealed that he was going to be a father, which he seemed genuinely excited about for approximately 2 seconds before remembering what being a father actually involves, and the excitement adjusted accordingly. With the helicopter key retrieved, we handed to Harry, specifically promised that he was not going to die in the next cutscene, which in Resident Evil game functions less as a guarantee and more as a formal announcement of intentions. That was pretty amazing. I'm sure Emily also loved it too. Well, given the gorgeous word for our rifle here, I wanted to create a little montage just how generous I feel. I mean, how good my aim is.
Oh shit!
After getting the zombies that attack us, we make our way down and get inside the church, reminding Grace maybe using green herb for Emily would be a great choice to heal her. After making sure Grace and Emily were safely underground, it was time to deal with whatever was waiting for us on the surface. And what was waiting was a church, another bulldozer with pimples that had strong feelings about being popped, and a floor full of zombies who had been lying down minding their own business until the bulldozer decided that was no longer acceptable and converted them all into blister heads on the spot. What followed was a dance.
God damn it!
Second attempt though, the timing arrived. Karate came fully online and we cleared every single one of them, with the focused efficiency of a man who had been given exactly one more chance and had decided that was going to be enough. Switching to Grace, we make our way through the sewer that smelled like fungus and shit. And I felt that smell through the screen and I'm not okay about it. Ugh. Emily is safely placed in the room, which is the one thing that has gone correctly in the last several minutes, and we are choosing to acknowledge it before moving on to the part where it stops going correctly. The girl was still out there, the score between us was not settled, and with the banana raised, it was time to get a revenge. To unlock the ceiling and flood the area with the light to blind her entirely, we needed to turn on 3 generators scattered through the underground, while simultaneously making sure she did not find us and eat our head. The banana turned out to be the most efficient tool available here, 2 shots to stun her. After 30 minutes of navigating the underground, Wild Eagle periodically reminded me that my ribs were a structural suggestion rather than a guarantee. We finally got all 3 generators running and opened the shaft. And the girl received her mandatory daily dose of vitamin D directly all at once, which resulted into something that could no longer chase us, and I will leave it at that. Making our way back to Emily, we find that the situation had developed in our absence. Specifically, Umbrella had used the time spent dealing with the girl to push whatever keys turn a child into something that eats people. And Leon arrived at exactly the right moment and put her down with the quiet efficiency of a man who had stopped being surprised by this category of a problem sometimes around 1998. At this point, Grace had clearly absorbed enough vitamins for one challenge run, and with the banana situation fully assessed, she handed it back to Leon, because she had looked at him and correctly identified a man who needed the potassium more than she did at this specific moment in both of their lives. Leon taking the banana with Grace, we see Zeno. Wait, why Zeno wears the same outfit as Leon? Is he our brother? Hey Leon, we find our brother, man.
Okay, Let's go get him.
After all that chaos in the care center, it was time to face the reality that the chaos had simply relocated rather than ended. And before the worst of what was waiting for us could properly introduce itself, there was a moment. Just a moment of something older and quieter. The city was covered in ash and ruins, the way a place looks when it has been left alone with its memories for 30 years and nobody came back to check on it. And somewhere inside all of that quiet devastation, someone had also allowed a spider to set up what I can only describe as an entire residential district of webs, which suggested the city had more ongoing problems than the ash and ruins. Now, my viewers, if you have arachnophobia, I want you to know that I see you, I respect you, and I'm giving you this moment right now to look away or skip ahead because what is coming next appeared in my nightmares before I even finished the fight, and I was the one holding the banana. Stepping directly onto a web which inside was the clearest possible signal of what was about to happen. We meet the giant spider. And I want to be honest that this was a disgusting fight in every measurable way. And while fighting her, we also had to deal with her children, which she had apparently been producing at an industrial scale for 30 years and had stored throughout the building for exactly this occasion. The damage mechanic requires shooting her specifically in the behind, which I cannot describe any further than that, and I will not be attempting to. The fight itself was not hard, it was time consuming in the specific way that things are time consuming when you're running loops around the entire building trying to land shots while also managing children and also running out of ammo at a rate that made every bullet feel like a personal financial decision. After all that gender pooping behind her ass and her consuming every bullet I had brought to this relationship, we finally put her to sleep. After everything Raccoon City had offered us in terms of hospitality, we arrived at the gate blocking our way to the Ark. And to blow it open, we needed 3 detonator parts scattered across the city, which meant Raccoon City had one more errand for us before it was done with us personally. Making it to the BSAA camp near the gate, we finally had access to the shop and armed ourselves properly for the first time in what felt like several business days. Getting the generator running, we make our way to what the map calls a Texan logistics warehouse located in Raccoon City, which raises several questions about supply chain management that the city's 30-year quarantine does not fully answer. And those questions evaporate immediately upon entering, because inside we find BSAA zombies who had apparently spent their 30 years of isolation arming themselves from what can only be described as a Texan gun shop, and were now shooting freely into the crowd around them like men who had finally found their calling. While throwing myself into the middle of a shooting range occupied by bored BSAA agents was not the most time-efficient decision, considering the speed demon achievement was still running in the background like a disappointed parent. It was nonetheless a decision that required a very specific skill set, and that skill set was cheesing. Getting the enemies exactly where we wanted them, eliminating them quickly and cleanly without taking damage, and collecting the Cellerbrook apartment keys before anyone involved could reconsider the arrangement. Getting the first detonator part, we make our way down to the underground parking garage, which presented its own immediate problem in the form of us being locked inside it with 2 batteries standing between us and the rest of Raccoon City. The first battery was inside an isolated section of the garage, which was straightforward enough, unless you made the decision to engage the blister head standing between you and it, which I did not, because I had found something better than shooting his pimples, which was ignoring him entirely. Then turning the wheel while he was occupied upstairs looking for someone to hug, and simply running to collect the battery while he was still processing that fact nobody had shown up to be hugged. The second battery was inside the main garage, loaded with people who had apparently spent 30 years looking for their car keys and had not yet found them and were not planning to stop looking. Going around them silently using whatever aim skills remained after the spider fight, we collected the second battery with minimal drama and got ourselves out of the parking garage. Getting out of the garage, we find some people who had not made it, and among the evidence left behind someone who looked suspiciously like our brother Zeno, wearing the exact same outfit as Leon, which raised questions we did not have time to answer.
Zeno, is that you? Why you're wearing my clothes? We need to talk, you bastard.
We collected the BSAA container key for later and moved on with the investigation of a city that kept producing new information at a pace we were not requesting. Getting inside the Cellerbrook apartment, we needed the crank from the first floor to reach the roof, and this section produced a few resets before something shifted, and I decided that I was not simply going to waste any more time here. Making our way to the rooftop with the crank, we encountered zombies armed with rocket launchers. After watching rockets convert the rooftop population to what I can describe as a tomato festival, and Leon contributing his own share of tomato juice to the occasion with whatever ammunition remained. And it was time to take the rocket launcher and formalize the arrangement by turning the entire area into something that would require a significant cleaning deposit. The game at this point announced that more zombies were incoming, which they had apparently agreed to in advance because they arrived already committed to joining the tomato juice situation, and we briefly and willingly assisted them in that transition before collecting the broken signal receiver, which may have arrived in its broken condition, and I know why it is. After all that and well-deserved protein break, we headed for the gas station, which was completely empty. And considering the gas prices at the moment, I am not surprised that nobody was stopping here voluntarily. From the gas station, we needed fuel to power the generators and unlock the doors blocking our next objective. And this was not going to be straightforward because standing between us and the fuel was a chainsaw man who had apparently been assigned to the specific gas station and had taken the posting very seriously. I unloaded every banana vitamin I had directly into him, and then I noticed that we had a chainsaw, right? I picked it up and finished the conversation with it anyway, because the banana vitamins had already been spent and there was no recovering the particular investment. After getting the fuel and deciding not to open any extra containers because the speed demon achievement was already judging every second, we made our way to Willis Tower for the final detonator component. I love heights, that is not the problem. The problem is that this glass building section was designed by someone who wanted you to lose your mind. Zombies coming faster than you can shoot enough glass panels to clear a path upward, and the floor being more of a suggestion than a guarantee. Oh! We had to prioritize killing specific zombies before shooting the glass, otherwise there weren't enough panels and Leon becomes a ground level problem. Time was valuable and we were not lingering. After getting the relay, it was time to get back down, which after everything Willis Tower had just put us through felt less like a descent and more like an escape. With the elevator, we finally made our way down. People apparently in such a hurry to get somewhere that they just started jumping directly onto the elevator from above. After repairing the detonator, it was time to leave Raccoon City on the bike. And Leon, it turned out, did not need his shoulders for this particular journey, which made the entire ride significantly more aerodynamic, and we are choosing not to question it. Driving through Raccoon City, we encounter Victor Gideon himself, who had apparently visited a pet store at some point during this chaos and had purchased several creatures specifically as a surprise for us. And after shooting each of them in Gideon's $1 billion investment portfolio, directly we arrived at the head-to-head moment this entire section had been building toward. Gideon, however, had not worn his helmet and crashed his bike before we could even react to the situation. Some rivalries end dramatically, some end because someone forgot basic road safety. Arriving at the RPD, someone had left us a note and we didn't have time for a joke. Our brother Zeno was somewhere inside with Grace doing what I will generously call flirting, which inside the Raccoon City Police Department 30 years after the apocalypse is either most romantic or most inappropriate choice of venue anyone has ever made. The RPD reminded us of memories that were 30 years old and deserved acknowledgement, and we acknowledged them briefly and professionally because Speed Demon Achievement had opinions about how long we stood still feeling things. Getting the banana loaded and the ammo sorted, we found a jack to pry open the gate, made our way toward Grace and Zeno. Hearing them discussing things that were not our business, and just as the conversation was getting somewhere, Capcom decided this was the perfect moment to send us 30 years into the past to play as Chloe, who was a kid cloned as Grace for Elpis situation, where we watched small children having a deeply unusual relationship with the doctors around them, which was the information I did not request and cannot unlearn. Seemed like we interrupted something between Grace and Zeno that they would have preferred to keep private, and then he arrived.
Damn!
Same code, same surgery he had done 30 years ago. It was going to be just like the old times, and he wanted to make sure we knew that immediately. And we ran, because some reunions you process emotionally later and survive physically first. Getting out of the RPD and making it to Kendo's gun shop, where we took a brief moment to grieve everything the city used to be before, accepting that the city had opinions about our continued existence, and those opinions were standing outside with a coat on. It was time to put Mr. X down one more time, and this time we were not rookie from 1998 anymore. We had the weapons, and we had the experience. We had 30 years of personal growth. Oh! Well, I mean, at least we had the guns. The Super Tyrant fight was hard in the specific way that things are hard when the person trying to kill you has developed a complicated personal relationship with the cars parked around the arena. Picking them up, throwing them, jumping on them, and I spent a considerable amount of time thinking this was not going to go the way I needed to go. The axe parrying worked cleanly on the most of his attacks, which was the one Mercedes fight offered. Somewhere in the middle of it, the game decided that a scripted Q2E section was going to happen regardless of what I wanted to, and the broken ribs were simply on the agenda for today, and that was final. And thanks to YouTube guide I had watched approximately 40 resets ago, the bear charm was already equipped, and the strategy of using the cars as a barrier before he could charge gave us just enough of damage window to actually threaten him. He made me reset this section more times than I want to formally document. But eventually, because everything is possible in this life, Mr. X has been put down before and could be put down again. After dealing with Mr. X, we handled the remainder of her children's spider situation and make our way down toward the Ark, which was covered in what I can only describe as zucchini, and I want to be clear that I do not like zucchini. Finding an entire underground facility decorated with it, it was a personal affront that I was not prepared for. The zucchini also had a boss which named as Plant 43 for another investment by Umbrella. The zucchini boss fight involved avoiding its attacks, shooting its mouth, and eventually convincing it to explode into itself, which it did. And the zucchini massacre concluded right there, and I'm choosing not to give it any more time. Reaching the Ark, the clock was sitting at 3 hours and 5 minutes. Which meant less than 1 hour remained to finish the game, release Elpis, deal with whatever the Ark had waiting for us. and complete the Trifecta challenge, or lose everything we had built since the moment Grace first picked up the banana and accepted her assignment without asking any questions. Making our way up through the arc, it seemed like Gideon or our brother Zeno, whoever actually had the budget for this, had hired special operations soldiers specifically to erase us from existence.
Ah, what the fuck?
Thankfully, everything this challenge had put me through had done something to my aim that I can only call an involuntary upgrade. Erasing them one by one was skill at this point. Some of these soldiers though had developed a patience I did not have and was not prepared to respect. Running away instead of engaging, hiding on the other side of an area and waiting for me to cross into their line of fire like men who had read a tactical manual and taken the patience section very seriously.
God damn it!
However, this facility had made a significant financial investments in liquors, and what Gideon spent billions of dollars on we used as a free resource, luring one into the soldiers' general direction and letting the investment work against its original employer, which got us through the section with something I am going to call personal dignity. Saving the game, we come across a room with what appeared to be an itemized catalog of everything we had destroyed on the way here. Over $2 trillion of bioweapon damage formally documented in one place. Of course, this was confirmed immediately by the arrival of a man who looked like Hunk and carried himself with a specific energy of Chris Redfield, which made me briefly consider whether it actually was Chris Redfield wearing a gas mask and having a bad day. And before that thought could fully complete itself, the boss fight had already started. I need you to understand something about this boss fight. It is the definition of anger management, not the therapy. The absence of it. Every periwinkle tighter than the last. Every face introducing something new designed specifically to invalidate everything you just learned.
Fuck!
Every death arriving at the exact moment you thought you had finally understood what was happening.
Oh, sweet.
I know someone at Capcom sat down after finishing phase 1 of this fight, looked at what they had made, decided it was not quite painful enough and added phase 2 specifically. Sir, phase 1 of the Commander fight is complete. Players will suffer greatly.
How greatly?
Very greatly, sir.
Ah, shit! Almost.
Not greatly enough at phase 2.
Should we make it harder?
Yes.
How much harder?
Yes.
Because they wanted to laugh, and I cannot prove this, but I know it is true. And I will go to my grave knowing it. After 50 goddamn resets, at some point I looked at the banana and had thoughts about it that were not related to vitamins or combat, and I'm going to leave that there. At some point I was so tired I thought I could not continue anymore. However, they say sometimes you have to accept your faith and continue whatever you carry on with.
I heard you were smartass. Not bad for someone at death's door.
Worry about me. That's sweet.
Bastard.
Get a little handsy, are we?
Make no mistake. Nothing will.
Then I managed to beat him with 75% health left, and it was just time to get out of It was another breakdown for me. Thankfully, the game saved in the room after the commander, which meant crouching immediately, and clearing the remaining enemies gave me something I had not had in what felt like several geological eras' breeding room. Heading into the room, we find Grace with Zeno, and the situation that had looked like flirting from a distance turned out on closer inspection to be Zeno explaining to Grace that she needed to release Elpis, and the Grace did not fully understand how. And then our brother Zeno pointed a gun at us for leaving him for years, without knowing he was actually our brother. And Leon processed this information and immediately shot the machine. Switching to Grace, we needed to get the dumpster power running to help Leon and the area between us, and that goal was crawling with lickers and naked zombies, which is a sentence I am saying completely normal at this point. Patience and silence were the only tools available here, crouching, waiting, timing every moment around creatures that had committed fully to the listening lifestyle. And after securing the key, we needed 2 orbs to open the red door, both of them located in an area that Lickers had claimed as their own and were not interested in negotiating about. Getting the first orb involved some zombies becoming barbecue along the way, which was both resource management decision and a personal one. And getting around the liquors turned out to be significantly easier in FPS mode. Second orb secured, we made our way to what I can only call the Capcom office, where Grace watched the scene of the Capcom CEO discussing upcoming Resident Evil games.
I know people love Resident Evil Requiem, that is why we are making Resident Evil 10 and 20 at the same time. So we can make more people play it, and we will make remake every game after we release them.
Switching back to Leon, we confirmed that his long COVID situation is developing into something the NHS would classify as serious, and that the clock on the wall had opinions about how much time we had left to deal with it. The elevator was the objective. This is a Resident Evil game, and the elevator was not going to simply be accessible. The key was in the area that Lickers had decorated with their presence and their tongues specifically, and Leon, who had spent this entire challenge surviving on whatever combination of spite and banana vitamins, had carried him this far. The banana made no distinction. Nobody in that corridor received mercy. Reaching Zeno with Grace, it was time to betray our promise to Leon and release Elpis, which turned out not to be weapon everyone had been treating it as, but an antivirus that completely neutralized Zeno's powers and healed Leon simultaneously. And then Gideon showed up, said he had missed the show, said he had a better one, and killed Zeno right in front of us, before announcing that he was that actual father, not Leon, which is the kind of statement that reframes an entire conversation, and which Leon received with the expression of a man who had already had the worst possible week. The time for talking was over. The time for making Gideon pay was here.
Oh my god, oh shit! I'm sorry about that, sir.
I've had enough of you!
Alright, jeez, give me a second. Sorry about that, sir. I'm really, like...
Seems you're reaching your limit.
After sending Gideon to his lovely death, Gideon had one more surprise left, and that surprise was becoming a nemesis, which at this point in the challenge felt less like a plot twist and more like a personal insult delivered by someone who had already used up every other method available to them. And after a few resets of learning his patterns and blocking his attacks, we sent him down the same path as everything else that had tried to stop us getting here. And just like that, it was over. Grace was saved, and Leon had confirmed he was going to be the father, which, given everything Gideon had said earlier, felt like the most important thing Leon had done all day, and he had done quite a lot today. If you made this far, you're stronger than I am. But go ahead and subscribe and stick around, because in our next challenge,
We will be partying!
Oh no, no, don't do it, no!